A massive green stripe of abandoned farmland is visible from outer space. Ukraine once held the world's third largest nuclear arsenal and gave it all away for a piece of paper. The deepest subway station on Earth could fit the Statue of Liberty inside its shaft. A Christmas carol the whole world knows started as a pagan chant about swallows. These are 28 facts about Ukraine that sound completely fake until you look them up. The ghost front line is real. A massive stripe of abandoned farmland stretches across eastern Ukraine, visible in satellite images as a bright green scar cutting through the landscape. This is the demarcation zone, where military conflict froze agriculture in place. Fields that once fed millions now sit empty, overgrown, and untouched. NASA satellites captured the line in 2014, and it remains visible today. The first gas lamp was invented in Lviv in 1853 by two pharmacists, Ignacy Lukasiewicz and Jan Zay. They distilled kerosene from crude oil and used it to light a lamp during a late-night surgery. The operation was a success. The lamp became the prototype for street lighting across Europe. The pharmacy still stands on Copernicus Street. Ukraine once held 1,900 nuclear warheads, the third largest arsenal on the planet. In 1994, the country signed the Budapest Memorandum and agreed to give up every single weapon in exchange for security guarantees from Russia, the United States, and the United Kingdom. The warheads were dismantled and shipped to Russia. Ukraine became the only country in history to voluntarily surrender such firepower. Arsenalna Station in Kyiv is the deepest subway station on Earth. The platform sits 105.5 meters below ground, carved into solid rock. Passengers take a 5-minute escalator ride just to reach the trains. The station was built during the Cold War, designed to double as a bomb shelter. The depth was no accident. The AN-225 Maria was the heaviest aircraft ever built. It weighed 640 tons fully loaded and required 32 wheels to support its landing gear. The plane was designed to carry the Soviet space shuttle on its back, and it could transport entire trains, wind turbine blades, and emergency generators. Only one was ever completed. In 2022, Russian forces destroyed it. A small town called Dylov claims to be the exact geographical center of Europe. A stone marker stands in the town square, with coordinates carved into its surface. The calculation is disputed because different methods produce different results, but Dylov holds its claim with pride. Tourists visit to take photos at the monument. Ukrainians wear wedding rings on their right hand. Wearing a ring on the left hand signals that you are widowed or divorced. The tradition comes from Orthodox Christian customs, where the right hand is associated with strength and honor. In Western Europe, the left hand is standard, but in Ukraine, the right hand is the rule. The Tunnel of Love in Klivan is an active railway line, completely encased in a leaf tunnel. Trees and vines have grown over the tracks in a perfect arch, creating a green corridor that looks like something from a fantasy film. Trains still run through it 3 times a day, delivering wood to a nearby factory. Kreshchatyk in Kyiv is the shortest main street in any major European capital, and it is also the widest. The street is 1.2 kilometers long, and its width reaches 75 meters in places. During Soviet times, it was designed for military parades, and today it serves as the city's central artery. The Motherland Monument in Kyiv stands 62 meters tall, taller than the Statue of Liberty. The statue holds a sword in one hand and a shield in the other, and she faces east toward Russia. When construction began in the 1970s, the sword was designed to reach even higher, but Orthodox Church leaders objected. Ukraine has a beach where the sand sings. The singing sands near Kherson make a whistling sound when you walk across them. The phenomenon occurs because the grains are perfectly rounded and uniform in size, creating friction that makes them vibrate at a specific frequency. Only a handful of beaches in the world produce the sound. Pilip Orlik wrote one of the world's first democratic constitutions in 1710, decades before the United States. The document outlined a system of checks and balances, separation of powers, and protections for individual rights. It was written in exile after a failed rebellion against Russian rule, and it never governed a country. Deep underground in Soledar, there is a cathedral carved entirely out of salt. The town sits above one of the world's largest salt mines, and miners have hollowed out massive chambers over centuries. One of these chambers was transformed into an Orthodox chapel, complete with chandeliers, icons, and an altar, all sculpted from salt. The city of Pripyat stands frozen in 1986. Clocks stopped at the exact moment of the Chernobyl disaster, and the city was evacuated within 36 hours. 50,000 people left behind apartments, schools, and an amusement park that never opened. The Ferris wheel was supposed to debut on May Day, but the reactor exploded days before. Lviv is home to the narrowest house in Ukraine, built to avoid a window tax. In the 19th century, property taxes were based on the width of a building's facade. One clever owner constructed a house just 1.2 meters wide at its narrowest point, reducing his tax burden to almost nothing. Ukraine produces nearly half of the world's sunflower oil. The country grows sunflowers across millions of hectares, and the yellow fields are a national symbol. Ukrainian sunflower oil is exported to over 100 countries, and the industry employs hundreds of thousands of workers. During the Soviet era, sunflowers were promoted as a cash crop. Every September, the small town of Uman transforms into one of the largest Jewish pilgrimage sites in the world. Tens of thousands of Hasidic Jews fly in to visit the grave of Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, who died in 1810. The pilgrimage coincides with Rosh Hashanah, and the town's population swells from 80,000 to over 30,000 visitors. Locals consider it bad luck to pour a drink while holding the bottle in the air. The bottle must touch the glass or the table before pouring. This superstition is taken seriously, and locals will correct you if you forget. The belief is that pouring without contact invites misfortune or disrespect. Ukraine has 25% of the world's Chernozem, black soil, the most fertile soil on Earth. During World War II, Nazi forces literally stole Ukrainian soil, loading it onto trains and shipping it back to Germany. The theft was documented in Soviet records, and historians estimate that thousands of tons were taken. The trembaita is the world's longest musical instrument, a wooden horn used by Carpathian shepherds to communicate across mountains. The horn can be up to 4 meters long, and it produces a deep, resonant tone that carries for kilometers. Shepherds used it to signal danger, to call for help, or to announce arrivals. Guests must be greeted with bread and salt, or it is considered a grave insult. The tradition dates back centuries, and it is still observed at weddings, holidays, and official ceremonies. The bread represents prosperity, and the salt represents protection. Refusing the offering is seen as rejecting hospitality. The Ukrainian language was banned or restricted 134 times over 400 years. Tsarist Russia, the Soviet Union, and various occupying powers all attempted to suppress it. Schools were forbidden from teaching it, books were burned, and speakers were punished. Yet the language survived, passed down through families and preserved in villages. Kiev has a hidden river that flows entirely underground. The Libid River once ran through the center of the city, but in the 20th century it was encased in concrete tunnels and buried beneath streets and buildings. The river still flows, but nobody sees it. The Optimistic Cave is the longest gypsum cave in the world, and the second longest cave overall. It stretches for 230 kilometers beneath the Ternopil region, a labyrinth of passages carved by underground water. Explorers have mapped only a fraction of it, and new sections are discovered every year. Traditional embroidered shirts, called vyshyvankas, are not just clothing. The patterns were historically read as a person's life story, and as protection from evil. Each region had its own symbols, and each family passed down specific designs. Red thread was believed to ward off harm, while black thread symbolized mourning. For years, the McDonald's next to the KYAV train station was consistently ranked among the top 3 most visited McDonald's locations in the world. The restaurant served tens of thousands of customers every day, a mix of commuters, travelers, and locals. The volume was so high that the location became a case study. The Odessa catacombs are the largest network of tunnels in the world, stretching for 2,500 kilometers beneath the city. The tunnels were carved during the 19th century, when limestone was mined to build the city above. During World War II, Soviet partisans used the catacombs to hide from occupying forces. The world-famous Carol of the Bells is actually a Ukrainian folk chant called Shchedrik. The song dates back to prehistoric times, and it was sung to welcome spring and prosperity. In 1916, composer Mykola Leontovich arranged it for choir. In 1936, American composer Peter Wilhousky adapted it into the Christmas carol known worldwide. Ukraine's strangest truths hide in tunnels longer than Paris, in soil stolen by armies, and in a language that survived 134 attempts to kill it. This is a place where wedding rings sit on the wrong hand, where mountains sing through wooden horns, and where a Christmas carol began as a pagan chant about swallows. You will find the deepest subway on Earth, the heaviest plane ever built, and a river that flows unseen beneath the capital. Subscribe for more shocking stories from Europe that nobody talks about.